Warning, the podcast you're about to watch may blow your mind. Side effects may include more money, more deals, and more success in the field. Please be advised.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Elevated Solar Pros. My name is Donovan, and I have the one, the only, the guy, Danny Pessy. What's popping, baby?
Yo, what's going on, man? Big D. Big D.
Oh, another day in paradise, man. Just here enjoying the weather while we have it nice. That's part of Colorado. It's very cyclical, like the solar coaster we'll talk about today.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me started on that. Oof. Yeah, it's raining here in Cali, baby. Raining deals, more like it.
Hell yeah. It's been raining a shit ton there, man. It's dropped like 80,000 gallons in like the past couple of days or something ridiculous, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a lot. Well, I've been on a cruise, like I was telling you, so
I'm excited to get into that, man.
Yeah, it's been a good little adventure, but getting ready to ramp up for conference season. So
hell yeah, man. It's here. The conference season is here. We got the Danny Pessy Setter Tour coming March 7th.
March 7th and 8th in Los Angeles, and then I have a leadership day the 9th to teach on how to run a region and a division. I'm bringing in some of the top divisionals in the space on how to set up your infrastructure. So yeah, it's I'm pretty proud of the event, man. That's the big push I've got. It's the top solar training specific event. It's a sales workshop. So I'll bring in a lot of sales training and workshop to the event and really helping guys set more deals, close more deals, and how to grow a region. Because the hard part is so many guys get stuck in the setter or closer model when they should be transitioning into running a setter closer region and then a setter closer division. So that's the bridge or the gap we're going to do, the natural hierarchy of a rep. You come in as a beginner, and I'm going to teach you what you need to train on at the beginning of your career, and then evolve into a setter, and then transition to a closer, and then how to run teams off of that specifically. So yeah, it's a good event, man. It's there's nothing like it. I'm really excited to dive deep into it. There's a lot that the space doesn't have, because there's a lot of the space there's a lot of stuff in the space that hasn't been done. And the ones that have done it, there's very few people out here training on it. And I'm happy to be one of the guys that now going into my 18th year doing it, I've learned quite a bit, man. So excited to share that with the space, and excited to be on your podcast. You got a lot of dudes getting on here, so hopefully I can provide some value for you dogs.
No, I appreciate that, man. I look forward to working with you here in the future. I know you and I, we linked up maybe a couple of months ago, and we decided just to like start working together in any capacity that we possibly can. So I appreciate that. But also with the tumultuousness of solar, I couldn't think of anybody that I wanted to hitch my buggy to more than you. Just being number one, the person that you are to me, like you have been for the last 3 or 4 years now, and also the amount of mentorship that you've provided me over the course of those years. I think that this is going to be one of the hardest cycles in solar that American solar has seen yet. It may even be like harder than some of the Australian markets that we've seen kind of go through similar, and have that adoption of like, where do we go now? Like we're adopting, like going to virtual sales. Are we going to adopt to go to home energy efficiencies and then just using like solar as a bolt on? Are we all becoming roofers now? Like, what are we doing here? Right. And so where does the industry kind of shift? Where are you seeing a lot of people like moving towards? Where is the new wave of solar, do you think?
So that's a really interesting question. And when I started in 2008, we were going through the worst economic crisis of my lifetime, the housing bubble. And I was knocking on people's doors that their house was getting foreclosed on. And this was before solar was even a thing. And it was home security at the time. But ultimately, and I'm very fortunate I started during that time, because there's an old saying. When I went to Vietnam, I went to Hanoi and studied some of Ho Chi Minh's writings and some of his exploits as the dictator in the North. And he's renowned up there and beloved, regardless of how you feel about political status and whatnot. He says that the way that you can tell, or the stronger the tree, the deeper the roots. And when you're going through tough times and storms happen, the one with the weak roots end up being uprooted and leave, and the strongest ones end up surviving. And that's what we're going to right now in the market, because what's happening is, and what I've known, too many people have got into solar for the wrong reasons, and they relied on exterior market circumstances to dictate their financial stability. When I grew up, I relied on my talent and persuasion and my skill set and my ability to get better faster than relying on a good market. So while people were getting kicked out of homes and getting foreclosed on, you had to get your stuff dialed in. And for the people that were there that weren't getting kicked out of their homes, that was on their mind. And so how can you persuade people to do that? I didn't rely on the big commissions, the fat check Fridays. We were making $275 a sale back then. And it was harder to sell a security system than it was solar. And so while people are leaning on the easiness of the market, I grew up leaning on my skill set and improving. And so what's happening now is you can no longer rely on the marketplace. And it's going to require you to increase your skill set and get better. You're going to have to work 2 to 3 times harder to make half the money you made last year. And for a lot of people, they're going to give up because they would rather lower their prices than increase their skill set. And I'm finding this out a lot as I'm selling coaching and training. Like, I'm not a guru, I'm not a coach, I'm a door-to-door salesman that does this for fun. And I make plenty of money selling still. And I'm realizing that these people that are getting out of the market are the ones that were, getting into it because they wanted it to be easy. They wanted easy, fast cash. And it wasn't truly about the art of persuasion and getting into a business to become a master of sales, marketing, and entrepreneurship. And so for me, I couldn't rely on the market at the beginning of my career. I had to rely on my skill sets. I had to use my humor. I had to use my wit. And I developed a skill set over the years of working hard. And that's what's going to happen. A lot of people are not going to be willing to do that. So they're going to leave. They're going to go to something easier. And so for me, I'm always, open to the best thing that's available. But I'm really excited to see what this industry does to the people that stay, because they're going to develop into some savages. And the people that don't, the ones that don't, they're going to continue just to find the next easy thing, and they're never going to develop. I was very fortunate that, there was nothing better than what I was doing back then, because everything was hard. I couldn't go switch to a different industry and it would have been easier because the housing market was collapsing. I find it hilarious. Oh, door-to-door is hard, so I'm getting into real estate. It's like, bro, you're getting into real estate? Real estate's even harder now than anything else. So it's funny. It's like, bro, you can't get away from the grind. It's like I see people bouncing around. Never works out. If you leave this space to go do something else, it's not going to work. It's when you look in the mirror and you're like, hey, bro, I'm going to figure this out. You'll be fine. And what's cool is if you learn how to sell now, you'll be fine for the rest of your life. That's why I got lucky. Is I sold in 2008, 2009, 10, and I got out of that housing market. And in the next 10 years, I made 6 figures for every single year I knocked after my first 3 years. And then, recently with the solar boom, it popped up to like 7 figures, and that was pretty cool. But ultimately it was because of what I learned in those hard trying times, that as times get harder, you get better, and then there's less competition. So if you can get better and learn from people that have been through this before, that are actually done it and not featured on these it's crazy baller busters that's coming out right now. It's nuts. All these fake gurus that are coming out, man. It's like, you can talk. That's what's crazy about the internet. I was doing this before all that stuff. And it's crazy to see all these people who, you could just fake stuff and talk about it. What's so beautiful and pure about this industry is you can't fake it. Like, you can text 3 or 4 people and find out if somebody's legit or not in this industry. And that's why I'm like super proud to come from place. And that's why I labeled my company Authentic. It's like, dude, I'm an authentic guy. This is literally all I've done my whole life. And, I learn from the best guys in the space. And ultimately, I have a duty and obligation to pass on what I've learned, because there's a lot of people who are training now that are unethical, that don't have the time in the field to be actually verified to train on what they're talking about. Everybody can pick up a camera. Everybody can do a Zoom call. Everybody can go post their opinion online, but there's not many credible sources out there. And so, I have to be the authority in the space and show that, hey guys, this is how you should do it. This comes from years of experience because, I make enough where I have a good living and I'm happy. And ultimately I want to see other people do well too. And that's why I started this business, is because, I enjoy being a friend of everybody rather than, starting up my own competitor solar company and try to recruit everybody's people. So that's the path that I wrote. My buddy started Legacy, Solar City, Sunder, all these guys I used to sell with went and started these big companies. And they're making way more money than I am now, but I feel really good because now I get to work with all of them. They're all my clients. And, I have a blast. They get to send me all the swag in the world. And I'm like, cool. And
shout out to Luke and Doug and Seth and all those guys over there that used to be Vivint Gangsters with you.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, man. So that's one thing that I want to talk about today. I think it's important to talk about the industry and the cyclical level that it's at and the bloodbath that it's going through. A lot of reps, they had established a lifestyle and on high commissions, living in things that they probably shouldn't be living in, driving in things that they probably shouldn't be driving in, knowing that the industry is going to eventually go through its roller coaster that it goes through. And you're going out of business every single day if you don't sell a deal, right? And so being that you're preaching authenticity, being that you named your company Authentic, I believe that authenticity is the most important thing for a solar rep stepping into 2024, where it's like you have to, number one, be vulnerable. And especially if you've kind of already been in solar, you kind of have to be vulnerable and be like, I was taught incorrectly. I was not taught at all. I really don't know more than I say that I do, because a lot of people like to posture and position themselves as a solar pro when we know that they're a solar Joe. And I think that's exactly why I put together this community, Elevated Solar Pros, because I'm bringing people on that are 10, 15, 20-year-old, 30-year-old veterans. And I'm not that guy. I'm, like you said, you're not the guru, you're not the coach, neither am I. I feel like I have respect to some degree in the circles that we run in. But I think, again, that's because I keep it 100% and I'm authentic. I don't try to fake it. People meet me and I'm exactly how I am in person as I am on Facebook. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of people will tune in for that. I think a lot of people signed up for my podcast. I got 115 people scheduled for the podcast in 3 days. And a lot of them are, top executive key partners inside of solar industry. So, being that you're preaching community, I believe that people will come to you as that notable coach that, you don't want to necessarily be, but you eventually will become, I believe you already are personally for me. But, the community that we run in the solar industry in general is still such a baby community. When we start hitting real estate numbers, like you mentioned, like 1.5 real estate agents that are licensed, registered, went and paid money to get a license, to get a lockbox before they even sell a house. You know what I mean? Like they're already $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, sometimes $10,000 in before they sell a house. So being that, all this stuff that we're preaching, authenticity, things like that, how do you see the industry changing and shifting for installers, for sales reps? How do you see that kind of all playing out with Nevada requiring W-2 sales reps and Mentis Corp coming out with like a real estate-esque license for sales reps and all of these things that are happening?
Two things are going to happen. What people aren't talking about is what's going on in the IRS right now. The vast claiming of the value that these solar TPO products are worth. If the IRS goes after Sunrun, SunPower, Sonova, and claims that those are all vastly overestimated solar value to them, it could collapse the entire market and basically start us off from ground zero, destroy the whole thing. So if that happens, that's really, really bad.
Whoa.
Yeah, which no one's taught. I mean, all of the stuff that's happened with legislature, that's not going to make any difference if that stuff goes through. So that's one problem. Because what's happening is, you know, with all of these claimings of stuff going on, also, you know, 30% tax credit. Well, why is there a 30% tax credit on sales reps commission? What about the equipment, the roof? A lot of these things could come to light. And so that's where I'm worried. That's option one. Option two is the government bails us out if, you know, some of these solar loans start defaulting. And because I believe that the only way to avoid the United States from descending into the dark ages is the vast reconstruction, or the vast, what's the word to get pressure off of the grid? The vast taking pressure off the grid. Because right now, the biggest threat to national security is the grid. There's three of them. There's the West Coast, the East Coast, and Texas. And so if you don't know about how it works, go get the book called The Grid by Gretchen Bakey. I tell all my clients to read it. But basically, it talks about how if you wanted to take out the U.S., you'd wipe out the grid. No power, no phones, no electricity, done. And so
looks like it may be a free book also, by the way.
Yeah.
So
good, go get it. I listen to that more than I listen to any sales guru training stuff. I mean, I've got the motivation. So now just having these extra little tips from that book gives me the conviction. It helps out a lot. And so I think that solar, because of that reason, it's going to be remaining a stable industry, and they're going to continue to push it going forward. And I think it's not going anywhere. It's going to be different. I think that everybody in the space is going to have to rely on their techniques rather than their red line. I think the relationship building is going to be hard. We're getting into a society where there's so much disassociation, no connection, no actual transactions of people. Salesmanship is dying, and it's gone to a transactional society. And I believe that rapport is going to be getting to be one of the highest traits in sales currency going into the future. And so I believe that you're going to have to learn those skill sets. And I'm very thankful that I was raised in a generation where we didn't have smartphones. I had a flip phone the first time I was knocking doors. There was no Instagram. There was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. I was on MySpace when I first started knocking. And so the thing is now being able to use those skills and persuasion and is really going to come into play. And so for the guys that want to learn the art form, it's going to be good for you, because it's going to be harder, but you're going to get through, and there's not going to be any competition. Like when I knock a neighborhood, there's no competition. I don't care if it was knocked the day before. Nobody, there's zero competition. There's maybe 2 or 3 people in this country that I wouldn't want to knock behind. And
yeah, well, you mentioned that earlier in our conversation too. You were saying like you don't rely on an easy market to be able to help you have a good year. You rely on yourself and being authentic off of your skill set and being who you are, like relying on your comedic persuasion abilities. You know, you're able to make people laugh and make them comfortable, make them like you. And I think that's really important to be able to learn that as a sales rep, because oftentimes I think it's like you pitch a presentation and then you show them the numbers and they're just supposed to buy from you. And then when they don't, you're confused as to why they're not. And you're like, are you stupid? It's like $50 savings. And the customer's like, yeah, well, I'm not getting out of bed for a $50 savings when I got to spend 50 grand to do it. And so they're like, well, that doesn't make sense to me. And so they're not selling on value. They're selling on savings. Now we're going to have to get into a period of selling on value and who you are as a person. And like you said, rapport building, because anybody can buy solar from anybody. And we're pretty much all selling the same thing at the end of the day for the most part, from probably more than likely the same installer for the most part. And so you have to be different as a person and provide that value on the back end. How would you recommend for like a lot of these sales guys currently, you know, they've been in for 10, 15 years and their installers going out of business and now they have to pivot, but they've only known one thing for so long. How would you recommend for an old, 10 years in solar, that's a long time. How would you recommend for somebody like that to pivot?
That's not a long time, because solar back then is completely different than it is now. They're in a new, This is a completely different market. And so the thing is those guys, it sucks but ultimately you can't rely on the past to past results or not future success. That's what Vivint talked about. It's innovate or die. And that's what I was witness to when I first started selling security. There was thousands of security companies. Now there's 3. There's thousands of solar companies. Soon there's going to be 3, a few regional players, and that's it. And so the same stuff that happened back then is going to happen. I guarantee it. We'll go back and watch this in a few years, and you'll be like, damn, Pessy hit the nail on the head. Because, guys, the same people that did it for security are the same guys running solar. It's the same process. The banks got tied up. They didn't get the ROI on security. Same thing's happening with solar. And so ultimately, that's why all this stuff is starting to dry up. I still make great money selling security. So by no means are you going to have to stop selling solar. It's not going anywhere. You just got to get better. Bro, I made hundreds of thousands of dollars selling a $50, $60 a month panel system, security system. You still make way more money doing solar, but you just got to get good at it. And what the thing is when you get good, there's less competition. Because they've heard the presentation before, but they haven't heard it from a polished salesman. Otherwise, they'd have gotten it. And so when I see someone without solar, I'm like, oh, thank God, no one good has talked to this guy yet. And none of my students have talked to this guy, because if they had, they'd have sold him. So that's the thing, is you got to get good.
Well, you hear that all the time, man. I mean, like, I was kind of touching on that. You mentioned like get good and don't let the economic time, the easy market dictate if you're going to have success or not. A lot of that is predicated on the fact that they're not really getting training at all. They're not going to your seminars. They're not going to anybody's seminars. They're just out there trying to find a customer that wants to have a discount on solar. And so, there's not a whole lot of people out there that are like, oh, the market's down, or the market's saturated, or the neighborhood's been knocked to death, or whatever the case may be. Like, out there in California, where like almost literally every house has solar, yet you're still selling solar somehow. When you have the market adoption where people are like the early adopters and the vast majority, they're like, yeah, my uncle has it, my aunt has it, everybody has it. But then you get out to like Arkansas, nobody has it. It's a much different market to pitch in, right?
Yep. Yeah. And so, that's the thing. It's just, you've got to, like Vivint says, you innovate or die. And I live by that. And, I was there during the heyday where I saw all these guys go out of business, and I saw what Vivint did to stay around. And now I teach on that stuff. I teach on they spent millions of dollars on studies on what a rep needs to do in their first 30 days to survive 2 months. And then what they need to do in 2 months to survive a summer. And then in the summer, based on their numbers, how do they stick it out for another 2 years? And then all these metrics, if you can get them hit, you're going to have a lifer. And so if you don't double your income every single year, you're most likely going to quit. So if you're a manager right now, the biggest number you should be looking at is, hey, if your reps numbers have gone down last year, they're shopping. They're talking to other companies. Your job as a leader is to find out how to get them back on track to doubling or tripling their income. If they can't maximize their personal sales, you got to start teaching them how to recruit and build a downline so they can supplement that income they lost from personal sales by having overrides built. And the thing is a lot of top tier sales reps want a better red line, so they switch to go direct to an installer, and they never learn the skill set of team building. The worst thing a leader can do is go get a lower red line, because that was given and it wasn't earned. Any quality organization can allow you to earn a red line once you hit the metrics. And if you hit the metrics, that means you know how to do it and you can replicate it. So therefore, that replication can continue to happen over and over and over again. And your income can be 10x because you've learned the skill set. Problem is, when you go and cut somebody out, you don't learn what they could teach you. And you essentially got a lower red line, but you don't get the volume because you never learned it because you wanted to go cut corners. And so that's the problem. Yeah. The barriers to entry to start a solar company are so low. I see some of these guys running a company, they have no business. They wouldn't even be an assistant manager in my office. Like, they wouldn't even be able to bro, it's insane. So that's the thing you got to start thinking of, is no more shortcuts. The market's going to either promote you or expose you.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just talking on the last podcast actually about the regulation and the licensing and certification that we have to have here in Colorado now as an EPC and installer that we can basically go in there and do a detach and reset in like Colorado Springs, bad example, but like Pueblo, for example, we can go into Pueblo and do a detach and reset and need very little certification. Like you barely even need a contractor's license at all. But like other counties now, they're starting to change some of the policies that they require, the regulation that they require, the red tape to cross. They're requiring you to basically be like a full contractor that can build a whole house before you can even touch solar because of all of the issues that they're seeing now. When it comes to the operational and maintenance side, what are you seeing with like sales companies where they hire a sub installer messes up the systems and they don't find out till years down the road, and now it's starting to kind of snowball? What are you seeing on that side with installs?
The red tape is what's starting to really kill these organizations. And the hard part is the harder it gets for the harder and the slower these utility companies make it for these installers to put deals in. It's going to drown them out. And then what they don't realize, if they go out of business, they're going to have bigger problems on their hand. So I think a more unified way of getting the utility companies and the solar companies pushing through deals is going to make everybody a win-win. And I think the federal government has to get involved, because then it goes back into the national security thing. Hey, SCE, quit bullshitting, handle this. Hey, Duke, quit fooling around. Like, hey, this municipality, hey, you have to respond within 3 days to get this permit approved. Otherwise, we're not going to hit our goals, and China's going to Russia or something's going to happen where it can ultimately cause a huge issue with the security of the country. That's what I feel. And so John Frampton talks about it too, is that's a big one, is national security, but also these electric cars. What they don't realize is they're selling more electric cars than the grid can facilitate. So that's going to cause all these rates to jump exponentially. And so that's why it's going to be nice that we're always going to have a job, because, you know, less pie goes around because more people are eating it, which is the electric cars. So rates are going to go up. So we're always going to have a job. But like I said, dude, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. And I feel that with all these people, there's a good amount of people leaving solar. It's going to make it easier. I remember when guys left, dude, my numbers took off. I started doubling and tripling because I was good. The pansies that couldn't last, oh, go sell a car, go sell real estate. Cool. They're going through the same stuff we are. But, you know, I'm just going to train. I'm going to get better. I'm going to stop living.
Yeah, man, I love that, dude. I think that a lot of people need to really just buckle down and like just start going back to the roots and just like get educated, like you said, like get some skills, get educated, me myself included. You know, I think a lot of this is kind of like a manifestation of being coached by people like yourself, and then also being able to help out others in the industry. And that's kind of how I earned my respect in the first place during COVID, just like giving out free information. Like, it's a hard time. You can't knock doors. Here you go. Figure this out. Go on to Facebook, go to groups, go get people through the groups. People want to be talking to people, and right now nobody's talking to anybody. So go talk to some people. They want to hear your voice, right? Yeah. And so, you know, let's say the dark times did happen. You know, how do we start from ground zero? Do you think? Where do you begin?
Well, the thing is, that's external. So the dark times will never happen to a guy like me or a trained rep like me, because ultimately the internal has such fortitude that regardless of what happens in this world, I know my center is so strong that I can facilitate anything. I sold during a housing crisis. Boom, let this whole freaking thing blow up. And I will find something and I'll sell it. Give me a notebook, give me a piece of paper, and drop me off in the middle of the country and point to a house and tell me to go sell it. And that's the skill set that people used to be proud of back in the day. Like the guys that are old school dogs that, you know, grew up knocking with me, like that was what we were proud of. Not our big check Fridays. We loved the art, not the finished product. It's the journey that we enjoyed so much. Yeah. And what's happening is so many people are more attached with the end result, the fancy cars, the money, than the journey and the art form of becoming a professional salesman. That is exciting. And that's what
you got me hyped up, baby.
Yeah, dude. Because it's art. You know, your words are paint and the canvas is your customer's ears. And the more you can articulate and illustrate with your words on that canvas, the better the imagery is going to create in that client's mind. And when you're at the end of the table and when you're sitting there and the customer, you ask the customer for the deal, they're going to say yes, because you've done a better job of illustrating in that customer's mind the end result. And that's why when I'm at a table that's talked to other people, that's talked about solar, that's been knocked before, none of them are a better painter than me, because I take pride in being an artist, not taking pride in the money I make off selling my art.
Damn.
We're expecting that one, huh?
I like that one, man. Got to put that one on a shirt.
That's deep. That's deep, dude.
Mr. Danny Pessy, the one, the only, living full color. Here he is. So where are we going to find you? How do we get access to these tickets? How do we get out to LA so we learn from you how to fortify ourselves?
So if you guys don't know, I've run a tour, set a closer tour, been highly involved with door-to-door consult, all these events, right? The problem with a lot of them are conferences are great, but there's not a lot of sales specific events because there's not a lot of people who dive into it. Everyone can talk about the mindset and stuff like that, but what about the technical? Okay, cool. What if you're motivated? What if you're doing well? How do you double and triple? And that's, you have to improve your techniques. And so improving your techniques can be learned of one or two ways. Number one, you go find the top reps and you go work for them. Or number two, you buy access to them. Now, the thing is the best reps aren't going to train you. They're not going to let you join their team and not going to give you any time of day unless you work for them. So the best way to get involved with them is you go to an event and you get to watch them perform, because all top reps love showing their art. And when they're performing their art in front of hundreds of people, they are getting a commission out of it, not in terms of a transaction by them getting their product acquired, but them sharing their art with you. And so when you go to a sales event that's all technique based, that's how you can actually double and triple your production, is you learn what they say differently. And if you're watching this, there's 2 or 3 things you're doing in your presentation that's preventing you from double or tripling your production. You guys are already almost there. There's a couple things the best do that separate them from what you say and what they say, because they're all saying very similar things, but there's a few things they do in a certain couple ways. And for $400, you can watch 30 of the best in the country and find those 3 things. And when you find those 3 things and you implement it, you can take off. But you got to know what you're looking for. People go to these events like you just eat popcorn and be entertained. That's not what this event is. This isn't a conference. This isn't a trade show. You walk around, talk to the guys at the booth. Nah, not interested in that. This is, you get a pen and paper and you're looking for those 2 or 3 things that you need to take care of your family, because shit's going to get harder and it's going to get scary. You're going to want to quit. Your family's going to be broke. Your parents are going to run out of money. Your siblings are running on savings, and they're going to look to you and they're going to say, hey, I need help. And if you can't take care of them, that's going to bug you more than anything else that you can in the rest of your life. So I challenge you this now. While times are still good, improve your skill set so that when times are bad, you can take care of those you love. Because there's nothing better than taking care of loved ones when they're freaking out, and you can tell them, hey, look, I got you. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Because that's true leadership. And so if you're watching this, I want to see you guys in Los Angeles, March 7th and 8th. We're going to teach you how to set more deals. We're going to teach you how to close more deals. Not just from me and my 18 years and millions of dollars that I've made in commissions and hundreds of millions that I've sold, but you're going to hear from the top performers in the country. Guys like Ricardo Ricky, who sell 600 deals a year. Top setters in the country that set 200 to 300 deals that close. What are they doing that you were not doing? Because the thing is, if you were doing it, if you knew it, you would do it. The problem is you don't have the knowledge. or you'd be getting the result. And so many people's egos get tickled because they don't think that they need help. But guys, if you're not selling 2 to 3, 400 solar deals a year, there's something you don't know. So get around the people that know it, and you don't have to work for them. For the price of $400, $500, $600, whatever the tickets are, spend it, get around them, and watch. Those 3 things will make a difference. While everyone's getting out, your bread is getting up. March 7th, 8th, and 9th, Los Angeles. You need the tickets. My Instagram page, at Danny Pessy, we're selling them. DannyPessy.com, setterclosertickets.com. Grab them. Sells out every year. We had 1,000 people at the tour last year. We'll have a couple hundred. It's in Los Angeles. It's worth it, guys. Techniques.
Love it, baby. Yeah, man. Thank you, Danny. This is the first episode of the Elevated Solar Pros podcast here in the school community, putting together something a little bit different, and super excited to see you here in California, Mr. Danny. We'll be meeting Mr. Brett Bushy out there as well, who will also be on the podcast. So looking forward to hanging out with you guys, man.
Dude, am I number one? I'm the first one?
You're the first one. I told you you were going to be the first one.
I love it, baby.
Yeah, man. You're my number one always, dude.
My dog. Cool, man.
Right on, Mr. Danny. Appreciate you. If anybody has any questions, you know where to reach Mr. Danny. And if you have any questions for me, you know where to find me. Thank you again.